A second element of the framework is that we receive personal revelation only within our purview and not within the prerogative of others. In other words, we take off and land in our appointed runway. The importance of well-defined runways was learned early in the history of the Restoration. Hiram Page, one of the 8 witnesses to the Book of Mormon, claimed to be receiving revelations for the entire church. Several members were deceived and wrongly influenced. In response, the Lord revealed that no one shall be appointed to receive commandments and revelations in this church, excepting my servant Joseph Smith, until I shall appoint another in his stead.
Travis went good, so to give you my background education, I went to Rick's College, graduated with an associate's, and took a whole bunch of Mormon classes. Went to Canada with the wife, and went to the University of Lethbridge. None of my credits counted. A church school education does not count for credits to a regular science-based school. And went on to get a dual bachelor's with a minor in classical languages of Biblical Hebrew, which technically is Dark Age, but Greek and Latin. And still going to have issues throughout the rest of the day because of what happened last night. And it was a unique degree or a unique graduation in that they created it for me. And to help me get the minor, they enlisted their geology professor, who had gone to Harvard and studied Biblical Hebrew under Thomas O. Lambden, to teach a class just for me and include others in that class opportunity. And Thomas Robinson, you'll find him on Amazon with his Mastering Greek. I was asked, but had graduated and had to refuse and passed it on to John Penny if he wanted to do it. I think he may have. I can't remember anymore. It's been decades. I worked on the CD-ROM that comes with the book to help people learn Greek. And then being dumped off here in Utah, I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, deciphered a dead language. And if you don't understand how big a deal that is, then you don't know the history behind deciphering languages. Jean Champollion deciphered the Rosetta Stone with Ra, the Egyptian sun god, through Ramses on the text. He recognized through Coptic and was able to translate the learning of the Greeks in the language of the Egyptians. And so what I've done is deciphered the alphabet origins. And it's not linguistic. Time after time after time, people ask me to speak something in a language. That's not how it works. It was a consonantal language, which means it was picture, logographic. Sandra Bullock in The Lost City. She knows what I'm talking about. Why can't she be my girlfriend? And so I then went on to decipher the remaining Egyptian hieroglyphs that were not put in the sign list by any PhD Egyptologist. Not Sir Alan Gardner, not Wallace Budge. Nobody. And so I don't know if you fully grasp what a big deal this is. And I've been trying to teach you how to do research yourself, and that you look for patterns, and then you recognize and you identify anomalies, and you develop a theory test to confirm or deny the inclusion of the anomaly. And I've been going over that with you for church history on my YouTube channel. As the fast facts, for example, are supposed to be utilized by you guys so that you plug them into the equation, you assemble them all together, and then you develop a theory which you then incorporate other information that you find into that equation. And I'll do a separate video, I don't know, I'm not in the ideal place to do it, but I'm a big deal. And I've talked to you about my brother, Todd, who went to BYU. He graduated in high school as a valedictorian, went to BYU, graduated as a valedictorian, and then went to the University of Michigan for his PhD. And did his thesis paper on the city of Ephraim. And so he went and lived in Ephraim for a period of time. And then went back, and this was sociology, is the course that he was going into. And stood before the board, presented his thesis paper, and was asked the questions that you do to get your PhD, and they refused. He had not utilized the lessons from the course material as he came from BYU. I'm surprised Michigan even accepted those credits and those degrees. But he clearly was not taught proper sociology. And Michigan called him out on it and said, no, we can't, in all good conscience, give you a PhD. We cannot pass your thesis. And so he cried to my mom, and my mom told him, pull the religion card. And that's what he did. You were persecuting me for my religious beliefs, and they caved and gave him a PhD. He then went on to BYU and is no longer teaching there. He's working for the church in the records department, where he's lost most of the Mormons who just don't care anymore. Over 13 million have just said, I don't care anymore, I'm out. And so the church is leading you to believe that there's 16 million Mormons that Nelson is leading. No, it's about 2.5 million who are actually active. And so when I saw the news clip today from a religious news source, a Christian news source, I've referred to them in several other videos. They were talking about Dan McClellan, a Mormon who's claiming to be a scholar. He needs to stay out of my lane. And so what they told of him is that he'd gone to BYU and went all the way up to a PhD in ancient Near Eastern studies. And I know very well BYU doesn't have the knowledge capable of teaching anybody, let alone giving them degrees in that particular field. And so, yes, as I am getting into it, he needs to stay out of my lane. And if you're unfamiliar with where I'm getting this from, you didn't watch Conference in October. Renland, he talked about staying in your lane. And so, yes, I'm using that against Mormons. And And so Dan McClellan was on the religious news because of his TikTok fame. As a scholar, and yes, he's working for the church. He went to, I think, Uruguay for his mission, and so he works for the church to translate the Bible into Uruguayan.
Put your charger on your bed there.
And as a result, he can't be working for too much longer, if that's all he knows. But because once you're finished, that's it. You're done. You've done the book. I knew a man on my mission in New York, in the Bronx, who was assigned, and he was given assisted living. He wasn't necessarily paid as a full-time job, but he was required to translate the Book of Mormon into his African language. And knowing that this was going to be the only money he was going to get, and once he finished the job he wasn't going to get any more, he was kind of stretching it out on purpose. And as missionaries, we were told to try to encourage him to move it along and get the Book of Mormon translated. And it's kind of a conundrum that he's in, because, you know, he helps the church, but then he's betrayed and poor, and he's an immigrant to America. So that's not a very good situation for him. And nonetheless, I know of this system that the church has. And they try to get people to do things for free as much as possible. I did it for free when I worked on the original Bible template to change the footnotes for the Guide to the Scriptures, so that this Dan McClellan can put it into the Uruguayan language. And as I'm going over his videos from YouTube, he's not wanting to do many on YouTube. He's a TikTok star fame. 250 million followers. And he was noticed and recognized when he was at Disney World in Florida. And people are loving him, and oh yay, thank you for helping me, blah blah blah. And so yeah, he's young, and he needs to stay out of my lane. But the religious thing made it very clear. My particular field of study is boring to people. Nobody cares about us. We live in obscurity. I'm the only one daring to branch out on YouTube to share with you my knowledge. And you can see how the church already hates me when you actually use the truth about the ancient cultures, because it makes the church very uncomfortable. Brigham Young wanted nothing to do with it. And so when Richards came back from his European mission, he had the pamphlet with the facsimiles from the Book of Abraham, or the Book of Abraham, and some other stuff that Brigham Young wanted nothing to do with. And so when it was published by John Taylor in 1880, it now became part of Mormon scripture that Brigham Young wanted nothing to do with. And that caused problems, because you notice in every conference when you do the sustaining vote, translator is missing. There's a reason for this. They don't care about it. They want nothing to do with it. And so they love Dan McClellan because he's been re-educated by them into BYUism. And it's apologetic arguments of fallacy that he's using as I go over it. And it's very clear. He makes assumptions and then branches off from those assumptions which are incorrect. And so you never get to the actual discussion that, hey, wait a minute, your core premise is false. So anything branching off from it is also false. And so Christians are going, yeah, he's awesome and great because he supports Jesus, for example, when Jesus was created by Constantine. And yes, I know he's in writing as a name. It is the name. But it's not the name. Emmanuel is the name. And again, I've been teaching you about this. And so, let me go over some of the fallacy arguments that he's going over here. He says, did Ron Wyatt find the Ark of the Covenant 40 years ago? No. Because the Ark of the Covenant does not exist. It's not real. It's in the Egyptian documents of the Ogdod story. There it is. It's in picture. But it wasn't on Mount Ararat. So no, that is not the Ark of the Covenant. Whatever's up there that Turkey will not allow, it doesn't matter. You're not going to the core premise, which is wrong. And knowing the truth helps you expose the lies that permeate our culture. And so the next one was, Jesus' name actually pronounced Yahshua? No. Again, it was a consonantal language, ideographic, logographic, pictographic, pictographic. It was not phonetic. It wasn't phonetic until the Greeks, because the Greeks added letters specifically to be vowels, and then turned some of the consonantal letters into vowels as well, and thus created the first phonetic alphabet. And then others followed suit, as Hebrew, for example. When the Jews got taken captive into Babylon, it got merged and mixed and turned into Semitic Hebrew so that it can be pronounced. But again, there were no vowels. It was just a spoken understanding. And it was not until the Masoretes in 800 to 1000 CE when they added in vowels and vowel points to their Aramaic script, because the Samaritans were still using the Paleo-Hebrew script. And again, if you don't understand the conflict between the two groups, again, I know my stuff. And he should have known his stuff. He should know all this stuff. But he clearly doesn't know this stuff. He got a PhD and doesn't know this stuff. I went on to the University of Utah to study ancient Middle Eastern religions and cultures under Eva Vasilevska. And that was just an additional education for me, as I was able to learn of the Egyptian cultures, mummification practices, and other stuff like that. And so, again, Dan McClellan needs to stay out of my lane. And so here he's talking about responding to some thoughts on the Gospel of Mary. Well, do you understand that they are legitimate scripture, Dan? I'm not going to watch it. I don't want YouTube plastering him all over the place, because they don't always allow me to say, I'm not interested in this guy. I was just doing it for a video to help other people stay away from him, of which he's probably going to become popular now because I'm pointing him out. It's the whole point. When I warn you of somebody, you don't run to them to go, I'm going to rebel against Travis and show him. But that's what you do, isn't it? You don't care about the one who knows the subject matter. You'd rather go to the dumbass who's popular. And so, yeah, this is stay out of my lane. Responding to Vodi Bakum on male headship. I'm not sure exactly what that's referring to. Baal, Asherah, and Planned Parenthood. Oh, isn't he funny? On Lilith. Yeah, I bet he has no clue that it's from the Heliopolis creation glyph. Or that Joseph Smith Sr. knew all about it, because it's Kabbalah. Responding to a conspiracy theory about Balenciaga, nativity fun facts. Are Luke 1 and 2 late additions to the gospel? I already did those videos in the lessons. Again, this guy does not know his material. He's a PhD, and he's dumb. Just like my brother, because he was educated at BYU. They do not give you knowledge. They don't teach you how to learn. You regurgitate what they tell you to learn, and they give you a PhD for it. Because you're a great memorizer. You can do well on Jeopardy. Right, Mormon boy, who was the top Jeopardy winner? Fun facts, Luke's census. Again, he's presupposing that Jesus is real. No room for them in the end. Presupposing Jesus is real. There was no deity named Molech. God. See, if he really was a linguist, if he really studied the ancient Near East, ancient Middle East as it's also called, depending on whether you're from England or from America. Oh dear God, it's king. The word is king in translation. Oh dear God. I want to scream. You get these people who know nothing, who are spreading misinformation about my field of study. And he's getting popular, and I'm boring. Did Bible change Passover to Easter? I'm going to turn into the Hulk here. Dear God. And Passover. Oh. Ishtar. Esther. Easter. Babylon. He should know this. Oh my God. I'm sick. I'm fed up with it. This guy is a joke. And that's why the church loves him. Is because he's sticking to the traditional lies and staying away from that which would threaten the church's position, as I have done, using the science. And so he's not willing to know the truth. He's ever learning and never coming to a knowledge of the truth, using fallacy arguments all the way through. Stay out of my lane.